Did you know that Australia, one of the world's most prosperous and beautiful nations, is quietly crumbling from the inside? While millions around the globe still view it as a beacon of success, beneath the surface, there are alarming trends that could threaten its future. From skyrocketing housing prices to an economy teetering on the edge, Australia's challenges are often overlooked, but their consequences could be far-reaching. What if I told you that Australia's stunning landscapes and growing cities are masking a much darker reality? The country is facing a perfect storm of economic instability, environmental collapse, and social unrest, all happening at the same time. These issues aren't just affecting the vulnerable, they're impacting everyone from the young to the elderly, leaving the country's future uncertain. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll discover 10 shocking reasons why Australia's quiet collapse is something we all need to pay attention to. Trust me, you'll never look at Australia the same way again. Number 1. Economic instability. Australia's economy has long been admired for its resilience, but a closer look reveals some deeply concerning signs. Despite its wealth in natural resources, the country's economic stability is slowly slipping away, and many of its citizens are beginning to feel the effects. One of the biggest red flags? The rising national debt. Australia's debt has surged in recent years, and while it might seem manageable at first glance, the long-term impact is something that could dramatically affect future generations. The government's spending habits have resulted in a debt burden that continues to grow, and with interest rates rising, the cost of managing this debt is only getting more expensive. Another issue is Australia's heavy reliance on the export of natural resources like coal, gas, and minerals. While these industries have made Australia a global economic powerhouse, the world's shift towards renewable energy is beginning to pose a significant risk. As nations start moving away from fossil fuels, Australia's economy, which is deeply rooted in these industries, may struggle to adapt. This transition is not just about environmental responsibility, it's about economic survival. Moreover, income inequality is becoming more pronounced, creating a divide between the wealthy and the working class. The cost of living is rising, and wages aren't keeping pace. For many, it's becoming increasingly difficult to make ends meet, let alone build a future. As the gap between the rich and the poor widens, social stability becomes more fragile. This economic imbalance could spell trouble for Australia's future unless swift action is taken. Number 2. Housing crisis. Australia's housing market has become a symbol of prosperity, but for many, owning a home is now a pipe dream. In major cities like Sydney and Melbourne, property prices have skyrocketed to levels that are unattainable for the average Australian. What was once considered a reliable investment is now an obstacle for first-time home buyers, particularly the younger generation. Rising mortgage rates and inflated property values are leaving Australians priced out of their own cities. For many, the idea of owning a home has shifted from a milestone to a distant fantasy. But the problem isn't just about prices, it's about availability. The country is experiencing a severe shortage of affordable housing, with demand outpacing supply. As cities expand, developers are increasingly focusing on luxury housing projects, leaving little room for affordable options for the working class. The result? A growing number of people are being forced into renting long-term, if they can afford to rent at all. With rent prices also on the rise, Australians are being squeezed from both ends. This housing crisis is taking a toll on social mobility, especially for young families looking to build a future. As home ownership becomes more difficult to attain, many Australians are starting to question the fundamentals of the housing market and whether they will ever have the opportunity to own property. The generational divide in housing access is widening, leading to frustration and uncertainty about the future. Until these issues are addressed, the dream of home ownership will remain just that, a dream. Number 3. Climate change vulnerability. Australia's stunning landscapes are undeniably breathtaking, but they are also increasingly under threat from the devastating effects of climate change. From the deadly bushfires to flooding that has become more frequent and severe, the country is facing a growing environmental crisis that can no longer be ignored. The last decade has seen some of the most destructive wildfires in history, with entire ecosystems destroyed and lives shattered. And yet, these fires are becoming more intense and harder to control with each passing year. The toll on both human life and wildlife is astronomical, and the cost of disaster recovery is escalating at an alarming rate. But the crisis doesn't end there. Australia's agriculture sector is also feeling the heat. Droughts are becoming longer and more intense, with water scarcity already impacting farmers and threatening food production. Australia, a country once known for its agricultural strength, is now at the mercy of unpredictable weather patterns. Crop yields are dwindling, and entire regions are struggling to maintain sustainable farming practices. The economic impact of these disruptions is staggering, as it directly affects the food supply, employment, and rural communities. Even Australia's iconic Great Barrier Reef is in danger. Rising ocean temperatures and increased acidification are causing coral bleaching at unprecedented rates, destroying one of the world's most important ecosystems. If this continues, the reef could face irreversible damage. With climate change accelerating, Australia's environmental challenges are no longer a distant threat. They are happening right now, and they could reshape the country's future in ways we cannot yet fully comprehend. Number 4. Political turmoil. Australia's political landscape is no longer the stable, steady force that it once was. In fact, political instability and polarization are becoming major contributors to the nation's struggles. One of the most glaring issues is the constant change in leadership. Australia has witnessed a revolving door of prime ministers in recent years, with leaders rising and falling in quick succession, leaving the country with little continuity in governance. This leadership volatility prevents the implementation of long-term policies that could address the country's most pressing problems, including economic challenges, climate change, and social inequality. But the problem doesn't stop at leadership instability. There is a growing divide among the public, with political opinions becoming increasingly polarized. Issues like climate change, immigration, and economic inequality are splitting the nation into factions, making it harder to find common ground. Public discourse has become more toxic, with increasing mistrust in politicians and the political system as a whole. Australians are growing disillusioned, and many feel that their concerns are being ignored by those in power. The lack of strong, unified leadership has made it difficult for Australia to navigate crucial issues effectively. This has led to missed opportunities and half-hearted responses to challenges such as the housing crisis and environmental degradation. Without the ability to come together and make tough decisions, Australia's future political direction remains uncertain. Until the nation can bridge these political divides and restore trust in its leaders, it risks becoming more fractured and less capable of tackling the issues that threaten its very stability. Number 5. Aging population. Australia, like many developed nations, is facing a significant demographic shift. Its population is aging at an alarming rate. The number of people aged 65 and over is increasing rapidly, and with it comes a host of challenges that the country may not be fully prepared for. The dependency ratio is growing, meaning fewer younger Australians are working to support the larger aging population. As a result, there's increasing pressure on social services, pensions, and healthcare systems, which may not be able to keep up with demand. This rising cost of elderly care puts a strain on the economy, threatening to destabilize vital sectors. The aging population isn't just a financial concern. it also creates a workforce shortage. As older generations retire, the demand for younger workers to fill their roles is intensifying. But Australia is already facing a skills gap in various industries, and with fewer young people entering the workforce, it could struggle to maintain productivity levels. Additionally, with a shrinking pool of working-age people, the economy may lose the vitality needed to sustain growth. Australia must find solutions to this demographic challenge before it becomes an irreversible crisis. Innovative policies, better support for aging citizens, and a revitalisation of the labour force are key to ensuring that the country doesn't collapse under the weight of its own ageing population. If these issues aren't addressed soon, Australia could find itself facing an uncertain and unsustainable future. We put a lot of effort into crafting these videos, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. Do you agree with the points we raised? Hit that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it makes a huge difference in helping us bring more insightful content your way. Number 6. Education system strain. Australia's education system, once a point of pride, is now under immense strain, and it's starting to show. Rising tuition fees and the growing student debt crisis are making higher education increasingly inaccessible for many. For students in both urban and rural areas, the cost of getting a degree is skyrocketing, leaving them with huge debts before they even enter the workforce. This financial burden is creating a divide, where only those from wealthier backgrounds can truly afford to pursue higher education, while others are left behind. As more students opt for vocational training or skip higher education altogether, Australia faces the risk of a skills gap that could hamper the country's economic progress. But the issues don't end with college. The quality of education itself is also under pressure. Overcrowded classrooms, outdated curriculums, and a shortage of qualified teachers are contributing to a growing concern. Are students truly receiving the education they need to thrive in an ever-changing world? For rural areas, the lack of access to high-quality schools is even more pronounced, as many regions struggle to maintain educational standards. Teacher shortages, especially in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM, subjects, mean that students in these critical fields aren't receiving the instruction they deserve. Australia's education system is facing a crisis, and if the country doesn't act now, its next generation could be ill-equipped to navigate the future. An unprepared workforce will struggle to meet the demands of a fast-evolving global economy, and the nation's long-term prosperity will be in jeopardy. Number 7. Environmental degradation. Australia is renowned for its unique and diverse ecosystems, from the iconic Great Barrier Reef to vast deserts and lush rainforests. But these precious natural treasures are being ravaged by unchecked environmental degradation, and the damage is escalating rapidly. One of the most urgent concerns is the loss of biodiversity, which is happening at an alarming rate. Overfishing, habitat destruction, and the spread of invasive species are threatening native wildlife, pushing many species to the brink of extinction. Australia's ecological footprint is growing larger every year, and with it, the delicate balance of its ecosystems is becoming harder to maintain. The Great Barrier Reef, one of the world's most recognizable and important marine ecosystems, is facing severe threats from rising ocean temperatures. Coral bleaching is increasingly common, and entire sections of the reef are dying off. This not only has dire consequences for marine life, but also for the coastal communities that depend on the reef for tourism and fishing. The environmental and economic cost of this damage is already staggering, and without intervention, the reef could soon be lost forever. Additionally, deforestation is taking a heavy toll on Australia's natural landscapes. Large-scale land clearing for agriculture and urban development is leading to the destruction of vital habitats for countless species. The loss of trees contributes to soil erosion, worsens the effects of climate change, and reduces the capacity of ecosystems to store carbon. Australia's environmental degradation isn't just an aesthetic issue. It's a crisis with profound long-term consequences for both nature and human life. If action isn't taken soon, the country could lose its natural identity and its environmental resilience for good. Number 8. Healthcare system challenges. Australia is often praised for its universal healthcare system, known as Medicare, which provides access to medical services for all citizens. However, behind the scenes, the system is facing increasing pressure and struggling to keep up with demand. One of the biggest challenges is the growing strain on public hospitals. With an aging population, the demand for healthcare services is escalating, leading to longer waiting times for critical treatments and surgeries. Patients are often forced to wait months or even years for necessary procedures, creating frustration and placing additional stress on the system. Another issue is the rising demand for mental health services. Mental health concerns, including anxiety, depression, and stress-related disorders, are on the rise, particularly among young Australians. Yet, the mental health sector is grossly underfunded, and there aren't enough resources to meet the growing need for care. This has resulted in overcrowded emergency rooms, long wait times for appointments, and overwhelmed mental health professionals. Australia's approach to mental health care must evolve to keep pace with the crisis. At the same time, the cost of private healthcare is also soaring. Many Australians who seek faster treatment or specialised services are being pushed into the private sector, where fees can be prohibitively expensive. For those who can't afford private health insurance, out-of-pocket costs continue to rise, making it harder for lower-income Australians to access the care they need. The healthcare system's inability to keep up with the increasing demand for services and the rising costs associated with care is a growing problem that affects the overall well-being of Australians. Without significant reforms, the country risks facing a healthcare crisis that could affect millions. Number 9. Global relations and trade risks. Australia's position on the global stage is rapidly evolving, and not all of these changes are in its favour. Once seen as a stable, reliable partner in the Asia-Pacific region, Australia's foreign relations and trade alliances are now under significant strain. A major point of contention is the country's increasingly fractured relationship with China, its largest trading partner. The diplomatic tensions between the two nations, which have escalated in recent years, have cast a shadow over Australia's economic future. From trade tariffs to diplomatic spats, these issues threaten to disrupt Australia's trade flows and hurt key industries like agriculture, education, and tourism. At the same time, Australia's foreign policy is facing increasing geopolitical pressure as tensions rise in the Indo-Pacific region. With the growing influence of China, especially in the South China Sea, Australia finds itself caught between maintaining its strong alliance with the United States and its economic ties with China. This delicate balancing act leaves Australia vulnerable to becoming politically isolated, as it risks alienating one global power in favour of another. On the trade front, Australia's dependence on a few key markets is also a risk. Global trade disruptions, from shifting tariffs to the impact of global events like the pandemic, have shown how fragile Australia's trade-dependent economy can be. The lack of diversification in its trading relationships makes the country particularly vulnerable to economic downturns triggered by global instability. Australia's future in the global arena hinges on its ability to navigate these complex diplomatic and economic challenges. If it can't strengthen its international relationships and reduce reliance on any single partner, the nation could find itself increasingly sidelined on the world stage. Number 10. Social division and mental health. Australia, once known for its unifying national spirit, is now grappling with deepening social divisions and a growing mental health crisis that threatens to tear the fabric of society apart. The issues facing the country go beyond economic or political concerns. They strike at the heart of Australian identity and well-being. Increasing polarisation on key issues such as immigration, race relations, and the environment has led to a fractured public discourse. Social media platforms and the media itself have contributed to an atmosphere of us versus them, making it harder to have constructive conversations and find common ground. The result is a more divided nation, where understanding and empathy are being replaced by anger and distrust. On top of this, mental health challenges are at an all-time high. With the pressures of modern life, including economic insecurity, job instability, and the effects of climate change, Australians are feeling more anxious, stressed, and isolated. Mental health services are stretched thin, and there is a growing recognition that the country's response to mental health issues has not kept pace with the demand for care. Suicide rates are climbing, especially among young Australians, and the strain on the healthcare system is only exacerbating the problem. Social cohesion is essential for any nation to thrive, but Australia is at a crossroads. If the country doesn't find ways to bridge its social divides and provide mental health support to those in need, the fractures will continue to widen. The nation faces a future where emotional and social health could become just as critical as economic stability. If Australia doesn't act now, it risks creating a society that is not only divided, but also deeply vulnerable. Australia's quiet collapse isn't just a matter of one single crisis. It's a combination of interconnected issues that threaten the country's future. From the economic instability and housing crisis to the mounting pressures of climate change and political turmoil, the nation's once solid foundation is now facing significant cracks. The aging population, education system strain, and environmental degradation further compound the challenges, leaving Australia at a critical crossroads. But perhaps most concerning is the growing social division and the escalating mental health crisis that are tearing at the very fabric of Australian society. As the country grapples with these issues, the path forward will require bold action, unity, and long-term vision. Without addressing these pressing concerns, Australia's stability could be in jeopardy. The time to act is now. If Australia is to navigate these challenges and secure a brighter future, it must find solutions to its economic, environmental, social, and healthcare struggles. We must all remain informed and engaged, because understanding these issues is the first step toward change. Thank you for watching. If you found this video thought-provoking, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going.